Well, witches, I regretfully say our time together has come to an end. And I want to take this time to thank you so much for trusting me to teach you about herbalism, especially how it relates to witchcraft. And I also want to thank you for taking the time to look into Witch with Me's Academy. It's an honor and a privilege to have been selected as one of the instructors for the Witch with Me Academy. And I hope that you'll look into some of the other courses that they offer as well. Over the course of the past 3 weeks, we've learned a lot of different aspects about plants and magic, herbalism, for medicinal and magical purposes. And so let's go ahead and wrap up and review some of the things that we learned. We learned about herbal correspondences. Now that sheet is a basic sheet with the staples of herbal witchcraft. And I hope that you do your own research and look into some different herbs that you can add to that list. Save that PDF, add it to your grimoire, add it to your book of shadows, and reference it always. Now there's a lot of herbal correspondences out there and different books that have herbal correspondences for magic, but what I found that was lacking was the amount of herbal correspondences for both medicinal and magical purposes. And I wanted to create a comprehensive little sheet, a little guide for you guys, new and beginning witches, to develop an understanding of what those basic correspondences are magically and how you can also incorporate them medicinally. A lot of times that you'll find that herbalism can be one-sided, either magical or medicinal. And I really wanted to take the opportunity for new and beginner witches to see how the two can infuse and meld together to be one. In week 1, we also talked about working with plant spirits. And I've also included a PDF spell on how to evoke a plant spirit. It's not necessary that you use that PDF to evoke the spirit of every single plant that you want to work with. It's not necessary or required, but if you feel so inclined and are dedicated and have the time, by all means, do so. We also talked about other ways that you can cultivate and begin a relationship with plant spirit. You can go out foraging and leave offerings, sing songs to them, write poems for them. Always leave something, always give your thanks. Another way that you can start a relationship with plants is by growing them from seedlings. Growing them from seedlings, nurturing them, cultivating them, and beginning a relationship that way. We also talked about the fundamentals of drying herbs, hanging them upside down. You can also use a dehydrator if you have the ability to get one. Make sure that you get one that is safe to dehydrate herbs with. If you get one that's made for jerky and things like that, it's going to get too hot and it's actually going to cook your herbs, and you don't want that. In addition to harvesting and drying herbs, we also talked about grinding and different tools you can use to do that. We talked about praying your intentions and infusing your intentions into your plants before you use them in your spellcraft. In Module 2, we discussed herb blends and how to create your own. I also included a PDF on starter witch recipes that outlines 5 basic staples of recipes that a witch wants to have on hand: protection, banishing, cleansing, healing, and prosperity. And you can mix and match those and also use your herbal correspondences PDF to kind of make your own versions of those recipes. They're just an outline to help you get started. They're just an idea of what you can use, and I've also included some substitutions or some additives on there. Go ahead and mix and match, play with it, and see what you like better. You can use those recipes for anything from herb blends for teas, to herbal baths, to dressings for candles, for salves, tinctures, poultices. Everything that we talked about, you can use those starter witch recipes for. So go ahead and do that. And I would love to hear your feedback on how that worked for you. What did you like? What didn't you like? Did you make some changes and notice that it was more effective for you? What were those changes? In addition to telling me about it, make sure that you're journaling it in your grimoire or your book of shadows. In addition to herb blends, in week 2 in our starter witch recipes, we also talked about incense blends and how you can turn those herbal blends into nice incense to use just to cleanse your home, to make it smell better, to invoke deities, to give offerings to deities. There's a number of things. You can also take herbal blends and make them into teas, and we discussed those too. We discussed infusions and what that means. Week 2 was jam-packed full of exercises and information. We took our starter witch recipes list and we made at least one, if not more, of the oils from that list. We then took those oils, or some similar, and learned how to dress candles using oils and herbal blends. We learned how to dress candles that were glass encased, like novenas, and we also learned how to dress candles that are taper or chime or non-glass encased. In addition to learning how to dress those candles and make the oils, I've also included a spell PDF for week 2. The spell PDF for week 2 was all about a candle spell for protection. And in that spell, you're going to use the non-glass encased candle, whichever one you choose to use, and you're going to implement the candle dressing technique that we learned in that module. Also in week 2, we explored the vast area of tinctures and all that entails. There's so many different ways to make tinctures and so many factors that go into play. We learned about the folk method and when it's best to use those when making tinctures, and what kind of herbs and flowers work better with the folk method versus weighing out and portioning your ratios. Speaking of portioning your ratios, we talked about the difference between using dry roots, herbs, and plants versus wet herbs, roots, and plants, and why you need a higher grade of alcohol to draw out and extract those constituents from wet plant materials. We made 3 different kinds of tinctures for 3 different purposes, from cold and flu, to divination, to calming and relaxation. And all of the tinctures that we made not only had magical applications, but had medicinal ones as well. That makes them incredibly diverse to have in your apothecary. Now, like I said, you can take that starter witch recipe page and literally make a tincture out of any one of those things. Tinctures are diverse because they can be ingested and applied topically. Some people even make tinctures that they can use as perfumes. Play with it, see what you like. And I wouldn't suggest doing that with the apple cider vinegar, by the way. I would only do that with the liquor, vodka version of tinctures. In week 3, we started out learning about salves and the history of salves and what they're used for. We discussed one of the most famous salves in witchcraft, flying ointment, how it's got its name, and what it really is used for. And then we also learned how to make some all-natural mosquito repellent that also has magical properties. And we also learned how to make a new and on-the-fly salve called Fire and Ice. After taking this course and studying the PDFs on herbal correspondences and the starter witch recipe kits, you should be able to start playing and on your own, on the fly, create your own salves and tinctures too. My challenge is for you to truly immerse yourself into making these items and really learning what works together and what doesn't. And you're going to surprise yourself. For instance, with the Fire and Ice, I really didn't think it was going to smell very good. I didn't think that the ginger and the mint smells and the cayenne pepper was going to go well with the eucalyptus. I really didn't expect it to complement each other. Surprisingly, it smells pretty good. Would I wear it as a perfume? No. But I was absolutely taken aback by how appealing it smelled. And I find this happens a lot when I'm creating herbal creations for my apothecary. And I think you're going to find that too. In Module 8, we learned how to make poultices, and we made 2 different kinds of poultices. We made poultices that can be applied directly to the skin, that one using activated charcoal, and we also made a different kind of compress poultice that is used inside of a cloth. Muslin, cotton, we use cheesecloth. Anything like that will work. And we talked about what the differences are and what those can be used for. Now remember, when we used comfrey, we talked about comfrey is one of those herbs that should not be used by somebody that's pregnant, trying to conceive, or nursing. Additionally, comfrey should never, under any circumstances, be ingested. It's very important, remember that. And some of those herbs that we have on our herbal correspondence list, most of them note that they are not ingestible. But always do your research before you start consuming herbs. Also make sure that the herbs that you are consuming are food grade or culinary grade. That's very important. You really don't want to put anything into your body that's been exposed to pesticides and herbicides and all kinds of other nasty things. And you certainly don't want to feed that to your littles or other people in your family that you care about. Next, after that, we learned about decoctions. We learned about decoctions and what the difference between a decoction and an infusion is. Then we made a decoction together and discussed what we could further do with decoctions. I have another challenge I want to throw your way. Since I don't have the ability to give you homework necessarily for this week, the homework that I want to give you is to experiment with decoctions and try to create one of those things, either a cordial or a syrup or a tonic. I'm interested to hear what you come up with, so please reach out to me and tell me how it went. And finally, we learned about herbal baths and what different belief systems and magical systems, how they use herbal baths and the difference and how you can use them. And we talked about attracting herbs versus reversal herbs, or sweetening versus bitter as they're also called. We also made a couple of our own baths. One of those was a removal, a cut and clear bath to remove all the negative and bad stuff. But since it's a cut and clear, not only does it remove the negative stuff, it removes the good stuff too. And so to combat that, we made a sweetening bath so that we can draw in those positive energies and attract prosperity and protection and healing and happiness into our lives. Be sure to check the course syllabus. I've added some additional reading, some resources. Some of these books I got some of my information from. They're staples in my witch book collection, and then there's others that are just great to have. There's a couple of books by Scott Cunningham, and if you've never read any of Scott Cunningham's stuff, he is a pioneer for witchcraft. I believe he's Wiccan, but he's written tons of books on herbal correspondences and how to use herbs and magic, and he's written a myriad of books and is kind of considered one of the gurus of modern witchcraft. And there's two books by him that I have referenced. I have referenced Cunningham's Encyclopedia of Magical Herbs, which is a staple. It's one of the first books that I ever read on witchcraft. And the other book is the complete book of incense, oils, and brews. Also a wonderful book. Instructional, tells you how to make all kinds of things, and tons of recipes. Another book that I'm suggesting is Hoodoo Urban Root Magic. That's by Catherine Ronwood. And that book has a different take on herbs than something like Cunningham's. Again, this comes down to being from two different magical systems. The way that they use the herbs, the correspondences for the herbs, all of those things differ from different cultures and different regions of the world. And so that book has a totally different outlook and perception on what herbs can be used for and the magical correspondences that they have. It's another book I highly recommend, and I reference it all the time. I also included a reference to Llewellyn's complete book of correspondences, a comprehensive and cross-referenced resource for pagans and Wiccans. That book is huge. It's like 400 or 500 pages, and it has all kinds of correspondences for all kinds of things, from plants to astrology to tarot to the elements to the planetary alignments. It's an incredible book. In fact, Llewellyn has a whole line of... There's my cat Diesel coming to say hi. In fact, Llewellyn has a whole line of complete book of series, and they're all wonderful. I also have the complete book of ceremonial magic, and there's a complete book of psychic development, I believe it's called. There's a lot of great books. They're huge, and a lot of information there. And then finally, another book that I'm recommending is by Star Cassis. And it's the Conjure Workbook, Working the Root. Conjure Workbook, Volume 1, Working the Root. Man, I learned so much of what I know from that woman, and I highly suggest you look into her work. All right, my friends, that about does it for me. Again, thank you so much for joining, and I hope that you guys have learned a lot from this course. I'm excited to see how you can apply it to your magical practice and how you can enrich your lives magically and medicinally and bring healing and natural wellness into your home and into your family. Be blessed, my witches. And one more thing, witches. I want to go ahead and let you know what my social media avenues are and what my platforms are. I do have two Instagram accounts. My witch Instagram account is Hill Country Bruja. And if you're more interested in my gardening and homesteading food preservation Instagram account, that one is Josie Hellebore. My website is www.josiehellebore.com. And on my website, there's different products and services I offer. I will post blogs weekly, natural remedies, all of those kinds of things. And stay tuned on my website because I am going to be revealing some apprenticeship and mentorship opportunities and programs. Still working on those. My Facebook page is Hill Country Bruja. You can follow me there. You can email me at hillcountrybruja@gmail.com. And you can check out another home studying avenue and platform that I have is my YouTube channel. It's Hill Country Bruja, and it's mostly about gardening, raising chickens, preserving foods, all of those things. There are some witchy videos as well. I kind of mix it up a little bit. So please check it out and show your support. Hit those follow buttons, those like and subscribe buttons. Thank you so much again, witches, and have a blessed day.